Hello, and welcome to my screencast on exploiting interspecies relationship. Today, I will be discussing the case of the woodland caribou. Specifically, I am looking at the boreal population for woodland caribou. The boreal forest is the largest of regions where caribou are found, and it only contains approximately 18% of the total population for Canada. Under SARA, the Species at Risk Act, the boreal population of woodland caribou has been designated as threatened. Threatened means that this species, if nothing is done, it is threatened to become endangered. Therefore, a management plan and a conservation plan must be put in place to assist in recovering this population. Woodland caribou are nomadic species. They have very large home ranges. The woodland caribou, unlike the moose and white-tailed deer, prefer a northern, mature coniferous forest, as opposed to relatively younger southern deciduous forest. The woodland caribou is an important symbol of Canadian heritage and tradition, is featured on the Canadian Quarter, and it's shown here as a symbol of Canadian wildlife and the tradition of the boreal forest, which is a very unique forest. This species, the caribou, should be considered a flagship species to facilitate protection of the boreal forest from further degradation and fragmentation. The current range of the boreal population is shown by this figure. The outline orange is where the woodland caribou are found. The action needed for survival, yellow, that habitat needs to be maintained. Orange, that habitat needs to be improved. Notice this area here in northern Alberta. That's a very important area that needs to be improved for the woodland caribou if that population is going to survive. Green is where disturbance is possible, and the boreal forest is outlined in this gray color here. So as you can see, this population ranges all the way from Yukon over to Labrador. So the current problem, especially in northern Alberta, is the development, exploration, and exploitation of the land. As well, with continuous human development, roads and other similar development occur, which causes problems for the caribou. With development and with fragmentation, very easily accessible corridors are created for predators such as coyotes or wolves and black bears, and this can cause a lot of calf predation especially, and lower recruitment. So it's very important to look at these interspecies relationships when considering this issue and considering how to maintain this caribou population. You can look for any species in Canada and look at its designation. So you put in your species you're searching for, search, and you find the species that you're looking for. So I'm looking at the boreal population specifically of woodland caribou. As you can see, there are other populations here that have varying designations. However, under SARA, this population, the boreal population, is threatened. So here's the species profile under the SARA registry for the woodland caribou boreal population. As you can see, the range is all the way from Yukon to Labrador. It's a very extensive range. As you can see here, the last COSWIC assessment was in 2002, and the last COSWIC designation was as threatened. So COSWIC is the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada. And COSWIC uses science and all resources at its disposal to evaluate and assess a species and make a designation to the government on that species. So COSWIC designated the boreal population as threatened, as you can see here, and the government responded to that and also designated under SARA, the Species at Risk Act, the woodland caribou as threatened. The SARA status, it was given in 2002, and a recovery plan should have been in place by 2008. However, there is no recovery plan currently in place. The most recent recovery plan that was proposed by the Honourable Peter Kent with Environment Canada has been continuously delayed, and it has been very controversial and has incited multiple quarrels with environmentalists. Since the caribou was listed, this recovery strategy should have been established, as I mentioned, by 2008. However, Environment Canada had to retract their proposal in February of this year because, as you'll see, it suggested exploiting these interspecies relationships to try and save the caribou, but at the cost of another Canadian species. So just take a listen.
They've been driven out of their natural habitat by urban sprawl and the oil sands, and since 2002, the woodland caribou has been listed as threatened in Canada, meaning the government had to come up with some kind of plan to save it. Today, after 10,000 submissions, public consultations on a caribou recovery strategy ended. Margot McDermott now on what's behind all the passion.
Woodland caribou are national icons. They live in our northern forests and on our quarters, but they're getting harder to find.
Some of these populations are declining at the rate of maybe as high as 10% per year. They're going down. That rapidly means that numbers have dropped very, very quickly over time.
Woodland caribou stretch from Yukon to Labrador, but herds in northern Alberta are threatened. They won't survive unless they get help. It's because industrial development for Alberta's oil sands cuts roads and lines through the forest, allowing wolves to easily find the caribou. But Environment Canada's proposed plan to protect the caribou is controversial. It says, kill the wolves.
I find it pretty disgusting. I mean, even the thought.
Paul Paquette is a leading wolf expert. He says they're being unfairly blamed.
Most of us, of course, know that wolves are not the problem. The problem is really industrial development and the effects that it's having on the critical habitat.
The plan says the wolf kill would have to go on for years while the forests grow back. Even this caribou biologist says there has to be a balance between human development and saving the herds.
That we have to protect all caribou herds at all costs, I just think is completely unrealistic. That is not going to happen where we have these incredibly valuable resources. It's a complete trade-off.
He's here because he's an endangered species.
Protesters, like this guy in a caribou suit, brought attention and a petition to Ottawa, signed by 32,000 people. 14,000 more wrote to the Minister of the Environment. Peter Kent says there's no quick solution, and his final decision won't come for months.
So we're talking decades, more than half a century. In some cases, it may take a century to restore herds to sustainability.
But environment and Aboriginal groups aren't waiting. They're going to federal court tomorrow to try to force Peter Kent to adopt an emergency plan that doesn't kill the wolves, but that protects the herds in northern Alberta. Margot McDermott, CBC News, Ottawa.
Where most cases of exploiting these predator-prey relationships state that adding a specific predator to an environment might manage a species, this is saying we should remove these top predators in order to save the caribou. As you can see, this community blog on CBC discussed this protection plan, saying that, should wolves be called to protect the woodland caribou. And there's a poll at the bottom here. I do not believe that the wolves should be killed in order to protect the caribou. However, the public, 2,768 votes, 55.52% of people who've contributed to this community, believe that we should be going out and killing wolves in order to save the caribou. I don't believe that that is an appropriate way to deal with the situation, because primarily the leading cause for this decline in the population is because of habitat degradation, habitat fragmentation. Human development is the cause to this population decline. So I think that exploiting this interspecies relationship, exploiting this predator-prey relationship, removing this top predator is not the answer. As well, taking away a top predator, you're creating an imbalanced ecosystem. If you remove enough of these top predators, this could cause huge reverberations throughout the entire ecosystem, and the whole food web could be affected. As well, the wolves are not the only predator of the woodland caribou. So is the plan to kill wolves and bears and coyotes and every top predator? Because that's just unrealistic. Ecosystem dynamics and interactions between all of these different facets of this boreal population and boreal ecosystem need to be considered. So although, yes, a recovery plan needs to be put in place, this most recent recovery plan is not an appropriate solution. You can see more exploiting interspecies relationships on our website. I hope you enjoyed our presentation. Have a great day.